Trump orders nuclear subs amid Medvedev's provocative taunts. In a move that has sparked global concern, US President Donald Trump has ordered the strategic repositioning of nuclear submarines in response to what he calls provocative statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. But here's where it gets controversial. While Trump frames this as a defensive measure, critics argue it could escalate tensions unnecessarily. Let's break it down. Trump's announcement, a response to Medvedev's warnings. On Friday, Trump took to social media to announce that he had directed 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in appropriate regions as a precautionary measure. This decision came after Medvedev reminded Trump of Russia's Soviet-era nuclear capabilities, a statement Trump labeled as foolish and inflammatory. In his post, Trump emphasized the weight of words, stating, "Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances." The context, a war of words and rising tensions. This exchange is the latest in a series of verbal spats between Trump and Medvedev. Earlier in the week, Trump had given Russia a 10-day ultimatum to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or face tariffs. Medvedev's response was a stark reminder of Russia's nuclear arsenal, a move that Trump deemed provocative enough to warrant a military response. However, security analysts have pointed out that the US already has nuclear-powered submarines deployed and capable of striking Russia, raising questions about the necessity of Trump's order. The controversy, rhetoric versus reality. And this is the part most people miss. While Trump's move may seem like a military escalation, experts argue it's more of a rhetorical one. Hans Christensen of the Federation of American Scientists noted that US nuclear submarines are always positioned to launch nuclear-armed missiles at Russia, making Trump's order largely symbolic. The subs are always there all the time and don't need to be moved into position, Christensen said. This raises the question, is Trump's action a calculated response or a performative gesture aimed at domestic and international audiences? The broader implications, a commitment trap. Critics, including Darrell Kimball of the Arms Control Association, have called Trump's remarks irresponsible and inadvisable, particularly given the sensitivity of nuclear rhetoric. Kimball warned, no leader or deputy leader should be threatening nuclear war, let alone in a juvenile manner on social media. Others, like Evelyn Farkas of the McCain Institute, downplayed the risk of nuclear conflict, describing Trump's actions as signaling rather than a genuine escalation. However, some analysts worry that Trump's rhetoric could create a commitment trap, where he feels compelled to act on his words if tensions with Russia escalate further. The bigger picture, Ukraine and US-Russia relations. Trump's decision comes amid growing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin's handling of the Ukraine conflict. Trump has accused Putin of failing to negotiate an end to the war, now in its 4th year, and has described Russia's recent attacks as disgusting. However, Moscow has shown no signs of complying with Trump's 10-day deadline for a ceasefire, which expires on August the 8th. Putin, for his part, has expressed hope for continued peace talks, but remains confident in Russia's military momentum. The question for you, is Trump's move justified? As tensions between the US and Russia continue to rise, Trump's decision to reposition nuclear submarines has sparked debate. Is this a necessary defensive measure? Or does it risk escalating an already volatile situation? And more importantly, what does this say about the future of US-Russia relations and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with Trump's approach, or do you think it's a dangerous game of nuclear brinkmanship? Share your opinions in the comments below. Trump's nuclear submarine move, a response to Russia's provocation. In a bold and strategic move, former President Donald Trump has ordered the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines in response to what he termed highly provocative statements from Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chair of Russia's Security Council. This decision comes amid escalating tensions and rhetoric between the United States and Russia, particularly concerning the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. But here's where it gets controversial: the lack of transparency surrounding the specifics of this deployment. Trump made the announcement on his social media platform, though he did not disclose the exact locations where the submarines would be stationed, or the specific capabilities of these vessels. His statement emphasized the need for caution and preparedness, hinting at the potential for escalation beyond mere words. Based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions, just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that, Trump wrote. He further elaborated on the significance of words and their potential to lead to unintended consequences. Expressing hope that this situation would not escalate further, when speaking to reporters as he left the White House on Friday afternoon, Trump reiterated the necessity of the move, stating, "Well, we had to do that. We just have to be careful." He emphasized that a threat had been made and that the safety of the American people was his primary concern. However, the White House has been notably silent on providing further details about the deployment. Questions surrounding the exact timing of the submarines' deployment, their mission objectives, and whether they are nuclear-armed or nuclear-powered remain unanswered. A White House official, when pressed for specifics, merely referred to a strategy of strategic ambiguity. The Defense Department has similarly deflected questions, directing all inquiries back to the White House. Despite the lack of concrete information, White House officials have been quick to promote the move on social media. Harrison Fields, the White House principal deputy press secretary, reposted a screenshot of Trump's announcement with the caption USA on X. This public display of support contrasts sharply with the behind-the-scenes secrecy, raising questions about the true motives and implications of the deployment. The backdrop to this decision is a series of heated exchanges between Trump and Russian officials. Medvedev, for instance, recently took to social media to criticize Trump's ultimatum for Russia to reach a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine or face severe sanctions. Medvedev's post warned that Russia is not Israel or Iran, and that each new ultimatum is a step towards war, not just between Russia and Ukraine, but potentially with the United States. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also reposted Trump's statement on X, underscoring the administration's unified front on this issue. Trump's growing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin over the war in Ukraine has been evident, especially after Russia launched a record 6,443 drones into Ukraine in July. This move to deploy nuclear submarines can be seen as a direct response to these escalating tensions. On Monday, Trump announced that he was accelerating the timeline for Russia to make peace or face secondary sanctions, reducing it from 50 days to just 10 days. "I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made," Trump said. "I'm not so interested in talking anymore." This firm stance signals a shift in strategy, aiming to apply more immediate pressure on Russia. But here's the part most people miss: the delicate balance between deterrence and escalation. While Trump's move is intended to safeguard American interests and deter further aggression, it also risks provoking a more aggressive response from Russia. The question remains, is this a calculated risk or a dangerous gamble? We want to hear from you. Do you think Trump's decision to deploy nuclear submarines is a necessary precaution or an overreaction? Could this move escalate tensions further, or is it a vital step in maintaining national security? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss the potential implications of this strategic maneuver. Trump moves nuclear submarines amid Medvedev's warnings. In a dramatic turn of events, former President Donald Trump revealed on Friday that he had ordered the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines in response to recent warnings issued by high-ranking Russian official Dmitry Medvedev. Medvedev, who currently serves as the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, had taken to social media earlier in the week to express his concerns over Trump's ultimatums regarding Russia's ongoing conflict with Ukraine. In his post, Medvedev cautioned that each new ultimatum made by Trump was a step closer to war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with the United States itself. Trump's decision to move the nuclear submarines came after he had previously announced a reduction in his deadline for Russian President Vladimir Putin to reach a peace agreement with Ukraine. The former president had threatened to impose significant secondary tariffs on Moscow's trade partners if Putin failed to comply within the new timeframe. Trump's announcement was met with a strong response from Medvedev, who warns the former president about the potential consequences of his actions. In his response, Medvedev reminded Trump that Russia was not to be compared to countries like Israel or Iran, and that each new ultimatum was a threat that could lead to war. He also took a jab at former President Joe Biden, cautioning Trump against following in his footsteps. Trump, in turn, fired back at Medvedev, warning him about his rhetoric and taking a swipe at Russia's trading partnership with India. The exchange between Trump and Medvedev highlights the ongoing tensions between the United States and Russia, and raises questions about the potential consequences of Trump's actions. While some may see his decision to deploy nuclear submarines as a necessary response to Medvedev's warnings, others may view it as a dangerous escalation that could have unintended consequences. Regardless of one's perspective, it is clear that the situation is a complex and delicate one that requires careful consideration and diplomacy. But here's where it gets controversial. Some experts argue that Trump's decision to deploy nuclear submarines was a calculated move designed to send a message to Russia and demonstrate his willingness to take bold action in the face of perceived threats. Others, however, see it as a reckless and irresponsible move that could have serious repercussions for global security. What do you think? Was Trump's decision a necessary response to Medvedev's warnings, or a dangerous escalation that could have unintended consequences? Let us know in the comments below.